اوكي. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. بلغ الرسالة أدى الأمانة نصح الأمة كشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على نهجهم واقتدى بسنتهم وأديم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are still continuing our series of lectures entitled Immigration and Integration, Al-Hijrah wal-Indimaj. And we are trying to cover in this series the most important strategic work of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions over the course of 10 years in the Medina. The work in building the Muslim community identity, the work in integrating in da'wah and reforming all aspects of life, such as the moral, the social, the educational, political, economic, health, environment, etc. And also we will see how the Prophet ﷺ was interacting with all the different groups of the Medina society, Muslims and non-Muslims, while he balanced the preservation of Islamic identity, al-hifadh ala al-hawiyya al-islamiyya, and citizenship, wal-muwatana. And I think this is one of the main issues that the Muslims that they have, how to do that type of balance between the preservation of Islamic identity and the citizenship. Okay, today, inshallah ta'ala, we will continue our series by covering the fourth strategic project that the Prophet ﷺ he carried out in the Medina. And I consider it as a cornerstone in building what I call the political identity of the Muslim community. A creative project and unprecedented in the history. This project, I call it the Medina's document, وثيقة المدينة. The Medina's document, وثيقة المدينة. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to the Medina, and after he completed building the masjid and the brotherhood and establishing the Medina's market, and I think we covered in the last 8 lectures, we covered those 3 major projects. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam focused on organizing after that the relation between all the different groups of the Medina society. And he documented all that in what we call the Medina's document, وثيقة المدينة. In our terms today, we can say, or we can call it the Constitution, الدستور, in which he sallallahu alaihi wasallam he clarified in that Constitution the obligations of all the parties in the Medina, Muslims and non-Muslims, and defined also their rights and their responsibilities. And it is considered the first constitutional document in the history. Yes, the first constitutional document in the history. And before it, humanity only they knew laws, which such as the Roman laws and Hammurabi's laws. So the document, the Medina's document, was the first constitution has been known in the history of the humanity. My dear respected brothers and sisters, writing such a document within the first 100 days of the Prophet ﷺ arrival to the Medina, it gives many concepts and implicit meanings about the nature and the culture of our religion, Islam. Concepts such as our Islam is an organized religion. It does not accept randomness in work. That's why, subhanAllah, it arranged the random relations between all the different parties in the Medina with that document. So the first thing that I learned from that attitude and that activity from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that Islam is an organized religion. Also, our Islam is proactive and takes initiatives, and does not stand by as an observer only on the sidelines. It was responsible in this project for organizing the internal relations in the Medina, even though that Islam was a newcomer at that time. Just a few days ago, the Prophet ﷺ arrived to the Medina. He did not say that I will leave it for the people who was before me. But the Prophet ﷺ, he took the initiative. And that shows us the proactivity and the taking initiatives in Islam as a culture. Also, our Islam urges clarity and clarity in the relations with the others. It encouraged the documentation and writing contracts, even though that our Prophet ﷺ is illiterate, is ummi. But even with that, he was documenting everything. And that's an excellent proof that Islam is the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of Allah. Because if it was a message from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will avoid the area of weaknesses that he has, which is being illiterate. But that was in purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make him as illiterate just to make sure and to tell the people that this Quran and this message is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most importantly, Islam urges the Muslims to respect, not only to document, but also to respect and to commit to those contracts and agreements, and to fulfill these contracts from their side. And Islam stands firmly from those who breach these type of those agreements, whomever they are, and Muslims or non-Muslims. And that is an honorable image of what I call a moral consistency that the Muslim should fulfill and we should follow. And finally, I learned also from that behavior that our Islam encourages creativity in work, such as the political creativity that we will talk about it, inshallah, today in the Medina's document. The Medina document, as I mentioned, was the first written constitution in human history. And it defined the concept of citizenship and coexistence and peace within a multicultural society, as we described it before in the Medina, that the Medina was a multicultural society. These are some of the concepts about the nature and the culture of our religion, Islam, that I learned from this action, and we should understand and we should practice in our life. My dear respected brothers and sisters, the subject of the Medina document is really big, and I'll try to summarize it in just 2 lectures to cover it fully. The Medina's constitution, for example, it includes around 47 articles. Due to the limited time that I have, which is 30 minutes in both lectures, I will divide this subject, inshallah, into 2 lectures only. And today lecture, just I will focus on the Medina's document important principles. The Medina's document important principles. And then the next week, inshallah, about the rights and duties that the Medina's document covered, pointing to some of the articles which discuss that. So let's start with some of the general principles that the Medina's document covered. And I will focus today on 3 major principles that the Medina document talked about. The first one is the unity. The second one is freedom of belief and worship. And the third one is justice. But those are not the only 3 principles inside the Medina's document. The other principles, such as the freedom of ownership, the equality, the safety, social solidarity, social security, we will cover all that in the next week, inshallah, lecture. I'm not sure if the next week, maybe if you have a test in the next week, we can postpone it later. But the next lecture, inshallah, we will cover all these other principles when we talk about the rights and the duties. So we'll talk about it from the angles of the right and the duties. So let's start with the first principle, which is unity. If you look closely to the document mentioned the unity principle in 2 areas. The first one is the unity of the Muslims in the Medina, because that was a new entity that the other parties who are involved in this document from the non-Muslims should know about. The Prophet, just in a few days, he did the agreement between the brotherhood between Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, and make them as one unity, which is Al-Ansar. And then he took the Ansar as one entity, and he made the brotherhood between Al-Ansar and the Muhajirin. So the other parties in this document, they don't have any clue about that type of, new entity and new unity. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made sure that this document started by indicating that, defining that. So that's the first portion of the unity that the document talked about, the unity of the Muslims in the Medina. The second one in the unity is the unity of all of the Medina's resident, all the Medina's resident, Muslims and non-Muslims, which is defined nowadays as citizenship. So when you read the document, you will find the first part, it was talking about the unity of the Muslims. The second part is talking about the unity of everybody. So at the beginning of the document, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he defined the Muslims as one nation. When he said in the document, the first article, he said, أنهم أمة واحدة من دون الناس. And they are one nation from the rest of the people. The one nation definition over here, it includes all the Muslims from Al-Ansar and the Muhajirin, as I mentioned, and those who followed them and strive with them, and even who joined later. So that is the definition of the one nation. And keep in mind that this was the first time that the Prophet ﷺ, he documented, as I mentioned, the brotherhood that has been established area between the Muslims from Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, and he called them Al-Ansar as one entity, and Al-Muhajirin, the immigrants, and referred them as one entity and one. The Prophet ﷺ transferred the Muslims by this concept, from the tribe slogan to the one nation slogan, which includes everyone who knew religion. The one nation was a new concept in political history and the Arabian Peninsula at that time. And by the way, many countries nowadays, like Canada and US, they use the term nation in their constitution. And as we talk about the one nation concept, it's important to look further in the Quran, which is, for us, I consider it the Muslim universal constitution from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our universal constitution from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's important to look at also that term from the Quran to see the further definition and to know precisely how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to reflect this one nation concept in our life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, says in the Quran, إن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاعبدون. This nation, the meaning of the ayah, this nation of yours is one nation, and I am your Lord, so worship me. Which means that the nation whose members are united together by faith, by feelings, principles, and strategic goals, in the same way that they are connected to their qibla, in their qibla, when they pray all together to that qibla, one qibla, when they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 times a day, should think and act and work together as one nation, as one ummah. And you see this meaning, subhanAllah, clear in different ibadat, such as the Hajj, the pilgrimage, Arafah, where all the Muslims, they stand side by side at one place, at one time. You will see it in Ramadan, which will come within few days. You will see all the Muslims, they do the fasting at the same time. And they break their fast at the Maghrib. And they do the celebration, hopefully that they do the celebration at the same time. No differences among them based on the color, nationality, language, or financial status. All as one nation, calling and worshiping one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the document mentioned the second dimension of the unity of all the Medina's resident, the Muslims and non-Muslims, which was defined nowadays, which we define it nowadays as a citizenship. The document stated in another article, إن يهود بني عوف أمة مع المؤمنين. Bani Auf was one of the tribes who are from Arab, but also they became Jews. And also the Prophet ﷺ, in the document, you will find him that he defined multiple, what do you call it, tribes. He mentioned them by name, who are included in that as a parties included in that document. So he said in this article, إن يهود بني عوف أمة مع المؤمنين, which means that the Jews of Bani Auf are a nation with the believers. Nation with the believers. So this is the second type of indication of the unity. which includes the right of citizenship for the Jews and also all the non-believers, because he mentioned some of the tribes, the Jews tribes, and also the non-believers tribes, al-Mushrikeen in the Medina, as long as they have the residency in the Medina and they are committed to the Medina's bylaws and constitution, which we will cover in the rights and responsibilities in the next week's lecture, inshallah, or in the next lecture. As you see here, Islam put the foundation for the citizenship concept and how to live in peace with others based on a clear and documented relationship and responsibilities and rights. Is this clear? So that's regarding the unity. The second principle is the freedom of belief and worship. The document stated, لِلْيَهُودِ دِينُهُمْ وَلِلْمُسْلِمِينَ دِينُهُمْ, which means that the Jews, they have their religion and the Muslims have theirs. The freedom of belief and worship is granted to everybody. Even the document warned anyone who violate that principle or break that rule. The Jews in the Medina, based on that document, they enjoyed a complete religion, I call it a complete religious and a legal freedom in practicing their religion. Even they have their own courts, their own rules and courts based on the Torah in judging among themselves. So basically, the Jews, they used to have their own courts and their own judging system based on the Torah, and they are not obliged to refer to the Islamic judiciary except in two situations. If the problem, effect, and the corruption could go beyond the Jews community and it will affect the Medina, in that case, they have to include and to go to the Islamic judiciary and to include the Prophet ﷺ in that judiciary. And the second thing, if the issue, it happened between them and the Muslims. If one of the parties is a Muslim, they have to refer to the Islamic judiciary. And by the way, and subhanallah, a lot of people, they have that type of misconception, like a lot of rumors and a lot of, distortion and what do you call it, propaganda. They do it on Islam and claiming that Islam is doing everything by force and forcing the people to become accepting Islam. If you look at the Islamic history, you will realize that the concept behind even conquering new lands in the Islam was mainly to remove aggression. That's the main reason for it, to remove aggression away from the people, because all the areas was occupied by the Roman and the Persian around them. So mainly, the main reason for that is to remove the aggression away from the people and any obstacles, just to hear the message and a clear message of Islam, not distorted message about Islam, but to hear and to deliver a clear message of Islam without any distortion to people. And you can see that the amount of distortion that the other countries, they do about Islam, even the one that we are living in. So that's the main reason behind the conquering in new lands, is to remove aggression away from the people and to deliver the clear message of Islam without any distortion to people, and give them a complete freedom of belief and worship. And our principle in that is the ayah that has been mentioned in after ayat al-Kursi, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي. There is no obligation in the religion. There is no force in the religion. So this is a full freedom to accept Islam. So they give the people the choice to accept Islam or not. If they don't want to accept Islam and to keep in their religion, it's okay. Stay in the country. We will give you the full protection on that. So if they don't want to become a Muslim, they can still live in the Muslim country with the right and the full rights and responsibilities that the citizens will have. And they don't pay zakah. The Muslims, they have to pay zakah, like the Muslims. But they have to pay what we call jizya. And it's only on the people who can fight and defend the country from outside aggression, and they don't want to fight. The jizya, by the way, it's only on the men who can fight, not on the elder people, not on the old people, not on the women, not on the children. It's only on the people who can fight and defend the country from outside aggression, and they don't want to fight, and they want to take all the responsibility, all what you call it, the rights and responsibility, enjoy all the rights and responsibilities and the protection of the Muslims in the country, and they don't want to they want to stay, so they have to pay a jizya instead. It's like the military exemption fees that we have and that some of the countries they have nowadays to do for their citizens. And by the way, if you look at the maximum jizya that the people they were paying, you know how much it was? The peak, the maximum in العهد الأموي والعهد العباسي, you're talking about 4 dinar per year. The zakat that you are paying is much, much higher than that amount, 4 dinar only per year. And if they found the person was not able to do it due to his poor status, they will waive it on him. Even they help him from Bayt Mal al-Muslimin. So that's part of the rights that they have. So you see that distorted image that they give about Islam. And the minute that the non-believers, by the way, the minute that the non-believers, they decide to fight with the Muslims to defend their country, the jizya will be dropped automatically. The way that Suraq ibn Umar, it dropped it from the people of Armenia in the 22nd of the Hijrah, because they fought with the Muslims to defend their country. And the way that Habib ibn Maslam al-Fihri, it dropped it from the people of Antakya, or Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, who dropped it from Al-Jarajima on the borders of Turkey and Syria for the same reasons. So the minute that the people, the non-believers who enjoy the citizenship, they decide to fight with the Muslims to defend the country, the jizya will drop. And the jizya over there is symbolic. It's not to torture the people. It's just as symbolic. So Islam conquering was not to collect the money. That's the misconception that the people, they have. Islam conquering all the countries was not to collect the money or to force the people on Islam, as they unfortunately they promote. The third principle is justice. Justice is one of the great principles and clear in this document, because it is one of the bases of any society's stability, the justice. The document mentioned وَأَنَّ النَّصْرَ لِلْمَظْلُومِ, and the support is for the oppressed. And you notice there, you notice over here that the term oppressed was used as a general sense. This means regardless of the oppressed person, religion, origin, language, or color, they will get the support to get their right back, and the aggressor is to get punished. Islam makes it a responsibility of the leaders to establish justice among the people that they lead. Even Islam makes it as a general responsibility for all the believers to establish the justice with everyone they interact with on a daily basis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. The general meaning of this ayah, this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding the believers to be justice to all the people, regardless of their internal emotions, even internal emotions toward them. If you find that you hate that person or you love that person, you have to be justice and not to divert the truth. And you have to be standing with the truth all the time and to be justice, whether you like or dislike that person. So subhanallah, with that approach, you will find a lot of issues has been eliminated from the beginning, because everybody is practicing justice on their daily issues. So this is one of the preventive, or what do you call it, primitive, preventive actions that you do it So to achieve the justice and to reduce the amount of, complaints that goes to the court, because all the people are obliged as the believers to deal with justice and to monitor the justice in their daily dealings. So it's not only the responsibility of the leaders, also it's the responsibility of the people, all the believers. That was just a brief description about some of the principles that the Medina's document have, and more principles, inshallah, we will try to explore it in the next lecture when we cover the rights and the responsibility. But let me just to finalize before we go to the Maghrib prayer right now, I think because the Adhan of Maghrib, I can summarize it right now, so at least we can go to the Maghrib, and then if you have any questions when we come back, I can answer those questions. Uh, uh, what do you think? Do you want me to cover the call it the lessons learned? Because I want to just reflect a few lessons when I read that portion of the Seerah. I would like to share with you yani, some of the lessons that I extract from the Medina's document, lessons and recommendations, and some of the proposed project related to our topic over here, and in a way to move these type of stories and to move it from the abandoned meanings and sunnah, and to move it from the theoretical dimension to the practical reality. And I will mention over here some of those recommendations. And next week, inshallah, we can mention other recommendations and other projects. As we talked about the unity principle in the Medina's document today, I highly recommend focusing on the Muslim community unity here in Canada. We are in a dire need today for the Ummah fiqh more than focusing on the minority fiqh. And I mentioned that multiple times in different lectures, because I want that principle to be embedded in our DNA, especially when we talk about tackling the big issues such as Islamophobia and what they teach our kids in the public schools that contradict with our Islamic principles and values. And even if we talk about any economic, projects, all these projects cannot be handled or be done by one organization. It should be done all as a group, as one ummah, because you need a lot of resources to do that and to achieve that. We cannot solve these issues and achieve these type of big projects with the minority mindset. We need to shift to the ummah mindset, the way that the Prophet ﷺ he did with his companions. In Islamophobia, they don't differentiate between you, your son or my son, or between you or between her and other people, or between Muslims who pray in different masajid, or pray in New York University, or who pray in UFT, or praying in MNN or Al Falah, Al CCO, Asna, Ad-Dar, or any of those organizations. They don't select. They will attack us all. So why don't we work as a whole, as an ummah? We need to look beyond our mosques, our masajid, our centers, our schools, our universities, and beyond the different organizations' membership. We need to break the 21st century, I call it a new tribal isolation, that we isolated ourselves from the Muslim community. And we need to deal with each other as we complete, not to compete, and to look at each other, each one of us in the Muslim community as a valuable resource. However, small his work or his size. So that's the reason why you'll find that we don't need to build mosques or build schools beside each other, beside your brothers and sisters. And instead, you help them to expand their work. So we are over here in this area to complete, not to compete, and to strengthen each other. أسأل الله عز وجل أن ينفعني وإياكم بسيرة نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ويجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. I stop over here. Still, there are a lot of principles. We're going to talk about it, inshallah, next week. But it's up to you right now. If you want us to continue getting the questions, or if you want to have a break for the prayer and come back. It's up to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa
So
barakatuh.
yeah, Maghrib Azan just happened. I think it
Yeah, it
would be
just happened.
fine.
We
Yeah,
can take some questions if you want.
I think it's fine if we go through the questions and
Yeah,
then you can read your duas and you can
yeah,
end it, and then inshallah we can go
yeah.
for Maghrib.
One important thing right now, we are in, they are talking about, the elections and the MPs and other stuff. And I think one of the challenges that we have is that when you select, you don't know what to select, whether you select the conservative or the liberals, each one, like, it's not perfect. Like, each one has a disadvantages here and there. So both of them are bad, but you need to select who's the less worse than the other. And I believe in the future, it's our obligatory or our obligation to create our own party as a Muslims. If we cannot change those parties from inside, at least to create your own party with the values, the standards, because one of the major issues that we have over here, the values, you can see that all the values that they are promoting, both parties, with double and triple and quad standards. They have the standards when they talk about justice or equality. So the equality or justice for the Canadian is different than the justice for the people outside Canada. And even inside Canada, justice for the white is different than the color people. And justice inside the white is for the 1% different than the other 90%, 99%. So even the justice, it has a different standards for them. We need one standard or in all the values. When we talk about the justice, one standard of justice for all. When we talk about equality, one standard of equality, not a multi-standards. When we talk about freedom of speech, one standard. And I think this is the major issue that all the parties they have. And this is one of the unique things that Muslims they have. We need to present a model, a political model that is not existing until now. It's like the economic model when you present interest free. We have a beautiful Islamic model we can present in as a political party, and you will find that a lot of people they will start to support you. When you talk about integrity, when you talk about transparency, when you talk about honesty, you know that a lot of parties they will fight you because they are serving not the community, not the society. They are serving the 1% who has the money, who has the power, and they have a lot of things underneath the table. So they will fight you. So the best way maybe to do your own party or to go inside the parties and to fix the parties from inside. But you have to become as a member inside the party and to work on the policies, changing the policies, which is inside the party. But you will be surprised about the amount of corruption that they have in the parties. These are some of the ideas I'm trying to share it with you, my dear respected brothers and sisters. Okay, I'm open to the questions, comments, ideas, recommendations. It's open now. The floor is open. It's all yours. You can ask by question, or you can write it down in the chat. I highly appreciate if anybody who can read the chat, just to read if there's any questions inside. Just to remind myself and my brothers and sisters that Ramadan is very close. So prepare to Ramadan and utilize that season is very, very important. And also don't forget your brothers and sisters in Palestine from making a dua for them. May Allah help them and remove that calamity that they have. وجزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم
السلام
السلام
عليكم.
ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.